In the last video, we started discussing total utility. What is the total amount of satisfaction that we are going to obtain off of a bundle of goods? Or what is the total amount of utility that we're going to obtain off of a single good? We developed a utility function and we talked about the aspect of utils. Well, now we're going to bring in a new concept called marginal utility. Marginal utility is pretty important. Marginal utility will ask the question, how does total utility change as more of a good is consumed? Basically, this assumes that, and this is going to be assuming that utility can be measured. Now, we understand that there's no such thing as a util. It's very difficult to measure a util because, let's face it, humans are all different, and how can you really measure satisfaction? But we're going to just go ahead and kind of go with it for these conceptual ideas. But this marginal utility is going to ask us this question. How is total satisfaction going to change as we consume more of a good? So marginal utility is equal to, or is the change in total utility associated with the change in consumption. So marginal, the word marginal means change. And then as we go through these chapters, you're going to see this little triangle deal. That's a delta. Delta also means change. It's a mathematical expression meaning change. So marginal utility is equal to the change in utility divided by the change in consumption. So we're looking at how much is total utility changing as we consume more of a good. So let's go ahead and look at it under this marginal utility example using burgers. So the good that we are going to be consuming is burgers. So we're going to look at how this marginal utility of burgers changes, or as the total, or as we look at the change in total utility divided by the change in consumption of burgers. So let's go ahead and look at how it looks on this graph. Let's say you eat one burger. You eat one hamburger, and man, it tasted good. You were hungry, you needed to eat something, and tell you what, you obtained 20 units of satisfaction off that one burger. Oh, it tasted so good. Now, we can't really calculate marginal utility just yet because we haven't had a change in utility or a change in consumption. We've only consumed one burger, so we haven't really had this change, so we don't really have an equation yet. And whenever you're dealing with marginal utility, you always leave this first box blank. Now, you were hungry. You ate that first burger, and then you decided, I'm still hungry. I want a second burger. You go and eat that second burger, and your total utility now increases to 30 units. And you say, you know what? I really wanted that second burger, and it was pretty good. So we go ahead and calculate our marginal utility. And remember, our marginal utility equation is a change in utility. So that utility changed from 20 to 30 units. So we see right here, this change in utility is from 30 minus 20. That's showing how much that utility has changed. And then we divide that by the number of burgers, or the change in consumption. So we increase the amount we consume from 1 to 2. So our change is 2 minus 1. So we see that our marginal utility was 10 units. So let's just stop and think about that. You ate that very first burger. Oh, it tasted so good. You got 20 units of satisfaction off of it. You ate that second burger. That second burger gave you an additional 10 units of satisfaction. It gave you a change of 10 units. So this marginal utility deals with what is the additional amount of satisfaction you're going to obtain off of one more unit being consumed. You got 10 more units off of it, and your total utility increased to 30. So what happens if you eat this third hamburger? This third hamburger, we see that we change the amount of satisfaction by 9 units. We increase our utility to 39 units over 30. That change is equal to 9 divided by the change in burgers. So we only consumed one more burger. We have a total utility, or a marginal utility, of 9. Our total utility is still increasing, but now the amount of satisfaction we got off that third burger was not quite as much as the second. Now let's go ahead and increase the amount we consumed to 4 burgers. We go through all the equations again. We see that off of that fourth burger, we obtain 8 more units of satisfaction. Now, that's not quite as high as the third burger or even the second burger. What we're finding out is that as we eat more, as we consume more, the additional amount of satisfaction off of each hamburger, the additional amount of satisfaction off of each unit being consumed is falling. But if we look at it, our total utility is still increasing. The amount of utility that we're consuming is still going up. Why? Because we enjoyed that first burger, we still enjoy the second burger, just not quite as much as the first. We enjoy that third burger, but just not quite as much as the second. We enjoy that fourth burger. So our total satisfaction is still increasing. It's just we don't enjoy it as much. So as we look at this, we notice that, or one thing to kind of keep in mind is that marginal utility will never fall below zero as long as the appetite is never fully satisfied. As long as we never quite get enough hamburgers, this marginal utility will never fall below zero. And that as more is consumed, this marginal utility is falling. It's meaning that we're not getting as much satisfaction off of each additional unit. But at the opposite would happen if less is consumed. Say we only consumed one burger. Well, then we'd obtain 20 units of satisfaction. Or let's say that we would eat 4 units, but instead we decide, well, we don't want that 4th unit, we only want that 3rd unit. Well, that 4th unit would have only brought 8 additional units of satisfaction, but the 3rd still brought 9. So as less is consumed, then the marginal utility will actually increase. So essentially the marginal utility of burgers is the additional utility, additional satisfaction received off of each burger that is consumed. And that what we must notice here is that marginal utility, as more is consumed, marginal utility is falling. And marginal utility down here actually does become negative. So let's kind of run through a scenario real quick of when marginal utility could actually become negative. So just stop and think about this. How many people do you know can eat 12 hamburgers? I don't even want to think about eating 12 hamburgers. At least, hamburgers from certain places are a little bit smaller, other ones are larger. I don't even want to think about having to eat 12 hamburgers. So if you eat that very first hamburger and you were hungry, you've been working all day, you've been working up an appetite, you eat that very first hamburger and you really enjoy it. But the second one isn't going to bring quite as much satisfaction. The third one, you're starting to get a little more full. You still enjoy that third burger, but you're a little bit fuller and you didn't quite enjoy it as much as the second. The fourth, the fifth, the sixth, the more you eat, you're still enjoying it a little bit, but not quite as much as the previous one. The additional amount of satisfaction continuously falls. Now let's say you get down here and you eat that 10th burger and you obtain 2 additional units of satisfaction. So you say, you know what? I still enjoyed that 10th burger. I think I'm going to go ahead and have an 11th. So you go ahead and you have that 11th and you go, I really didn't enjoy that one all that much. Not that I had a distaste for it. I really just didn't enjoy it. But you know what? There's a 12th hamburger sitting right here. I think I'm going to go ahead and eat that 12th hamburger. And once you eat that 12th hamburger, guess what? You get sick. And when you get sick, that total utility actually fell. Because instead of enjoying that 12th hamburger or even just staying neutral like you did on the 11th, you got sick. And that sick was, whenever you got sick, you don't feel very good and you actually feel worse. So as a result, your total amount of satisfaction actually fell, meaning your marginal utility, the additional utility you got off that hamburger, was actually negative.